So what is companion planting? And with spring approaching, now is a great time to start thinking about companion planting. But look at my marigolds, I've got 3 up already. Now, what if I told you there was a really simple and effective way to grow the healthiest vegetables possible, but without the use of any nasty chemicals? Now, I've brought you into my greenhouse to discuss 4 main reasons why the art of companion planting can make your vegetable garden healthier by working with nature to create a balanced ecosystem. So welcome back to my kitchen garden. So what is companion planting? Well, companion planting is actually a really old method of growing different plants together to help each other. And by choosing the right companion plants, you can actually boost growth, you can keep pests and diseases away, and you can even improve your soil's health. So if you are new to growing vegetables and you don't know much about companion planting, it might seem a bit strange to be mixing different plants together. So when we think of a traditional allotment, we often picture really neat rows of vegetables, like rows of potatoes and then rows of carrots and cabbages, and it can look really nice, but it can also create its own problems. So if you think about it, planting a lot of one type of crop can actually attract pests that spread diseases, but by planting carefully you can actually manage the pests a lot better. You can draw them away from your main crops by using plants that attract them, or by using scents and chemicals that some plants produce, you can help to keep them away. So there are so many benefits for companion planting for vegetables, but they tend to fall into 4 main categories: by deterring insect pests and diseases, by attracting beneficial insects, birds and pollinators, by using sacrificial plants, and by creating the best conditions for your plants to grow in. And with spring approaching, now is a great time to start thinking about companion planting as you prepare to sow your seeds. So firstly, who wants to use nasty chemicals in the garden? I know that I don't. So what can we do instead? So let's have a look at the French marigold. Now, this is one of the very best plants that you can actually have in your arsenal. They're strongly scented and they make the best companion to almost all of your vegetables. So firstly, they repel whiteflies and aphids, but secondly, they produce a chemical in their roots that can actually deter nematodes, slugs and wireworms. And actually growing marigolds in your greenhouse can be particularly useful. Now, I know that every year I get aphids on my chilies and they are really difficult to get rid of in a confined space. The humidity is just perfect conditions for them. So growing marigolds next to, say, your chili plants would be really beneficial. So let's look at another example. So the carrot root fly is attracted to carrots by its scent. And once the larvae hatch, they'll burrow into the carrots and they can actually ruin a whole crop. So growing strong scented plants, say like onions, leeks and garlic, amongst or even next to your carrots can actually mask the fragrance and prevent the carrot root flies from finding them. Predatory insects like ladybirds, hoverflies, lacewings and parasitic wasps will help your vegetable garden by eating aphids and caterpillars. Now, you can attract these helpful insects by planting flowering herbs. So things like yarrow, dill, lemon balm, coriander and chives are all fantastic. But also nectar-rich plants such as cosmos, marigolds and calendula will all help to entice them into your garden. Birds can also help by feeding on the caterpillars, grubs and aphids, slugs and snails. So consider hanging bird feeders to attract garden birds, but always make sure you provide them with water too. To attract pollinators like bees, moths and butterflies, you can plant wildflowers such as oxeye daisies and herbs like borage and lavender. But you can also use nectar-rich plants like Verbena bonariensis, sunflowers, calendula and cosmos. So this is one of my favourite techniques. Now let me introduce you to the mighty nasturtiums. Now these plants are so versatile since every part of them is edible, but even better, they are notorious for attracting not only colonies of black fly, but the dreaded cabbage white butterfly that loves to lay her eggs on the underside of the leaves. And planting nasturtiums close to brassicas as a distraction is a great strategy, as the cabbage white caterpillars can strip a plant almost overnight. Another great pairing and an absolute classic can be found in the greenhouse, and that is growing basil with your tomatoes and cucumbers. Now basil can protect them from aphids if they're planted nearby, but it's also believed that growing basil and tomatoes can improve their flavour. Now, while this is up for debate, they do work well together in cooking, so I love to grow the two together, and I do it every year. So I've got my tomatoes, I've sown these already, and the seedlings are coming up, and I need to sow this. So I've got red-leaved basil and sweet green basil. Fabulous combination, and even if it doesn't improve the flavour, it's still great to have the two growing together. Fourth and final technique is all about creating the best environment for, or the best conditions for your plants to grow. Now that may seem really difficult to imagine when it is bitterly cold and windy like today, but shade-loving crops like lettuce can actually benefit from being grown amongst taller crops like tomatoes and sweet corn, where shade is an issue. And some plants can actually improve the soil. So peas and beans are all what's known as nitrogen fixers. So in other words, they extract nitrogen from the air and then they release any excess directly into the soil through nodules that's on their roots. Now this can really benefit heavy feeders like potatoes, carrots and tomatoes. So growing them close together is a really good idea. Ground cover crops like lettuce and squash, or anything that's got large leaves, will help keep moisture in the soil by making them the perfect companion for plants like tomatoes, which also thrive from moist conditions. So now I've mentioned the tomatoes and the lettuce twice, so if you think about it, it's a great pairing. The shade cast by tomatoes benefit the lettuce, and the lettuce keeping the moisture in the soil also benefits the tomato, so it's a perfect pairing. So I guess what I really ought to do now is put my money where my mouth is, figuratively speaking. So with companion planting in mind, I'll show you what I've sown already, and in a minute I'll show you the seeds that I intend to sow in the coming weeks. So these are some of my seed trays. This has got the Lollo Rosso lettuce and 2 lots of cosmos. The first slot, the seashells, they're actually coming up already. These ones, there's no show at the moment, but I'm sure they'll be up in a couple of days. Now this has got the nasturtiums in. They've not shown yet, but look at my marigolds. I've got 3 up already, so I'm really chuffed about that, because as I've explained already, they're probably the best and the gardener's favourite. So in addition to the cosmos, nasturtiums and marigolds, I'm also going to be sowing some cornflowers, valerian and some borage, and hopefully I'm going to get some poppies as well. I was looking through some old videos, and it was a few years ago, I had loads of poppies all through the garden, and it just looked so pretty, and I don't know why I haven't got them since. So yeah, I'm going to sow some more poppies. So I think one of the most compelling things about companion planting is that it's not just about avoiding problems, it's also about creating that thriving ecosystem that's full of life and diversity. And when you use companion plants, you're working with nature to create a balanced and healthy environment. So don't forget to try out some companion planting in your own vegetable garden this season. It is a game changer, and it can really help you to grow the healthiest and most thriving vegetables possible. So thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to comment below with your favourite companion plants. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more gardening tips and tricks. So I'll see you all in the next one. I'm Annie, and this is my kitchen garden.